Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. This is the first part of a two-part video series on implementing remote push notifications in your iOS applications using Firebase. In this first part, we're going to get the basics up and running, which will allow us to deliver a remote notification from the Firebase console. And in the second part of the video, we're actually going to learn how to deliver notifications from another device to another device, basically. So device notifications. So for example, in the Facebook app, when you like somebody's post, you hit the like thumb, and then, on the UI, it thumbs up, but then on the other user's device, they typically will get a notification saying, that you liked it or that you commented on their post. And we're going to learn at least one way to do that. But in this first video, we're just going to get the basics going. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm using Xcode 9 Beta 6. The real version, or the release version, should be out here in a couple weeks, usually right around the time they do their big announcement. So, new iPhone and new iOS right around the corner, so that's pretty exciting. So we're going to go ahead and open that and get started here. I'm going to open Xcode. I'm going to create a new project. Looks like maybe Xcode is going to make us wait here just a second. There we go. File, new project. And I'm just going to create a single view application. We don't need anything fancy for our user interface. I'm going to click next. I'm going to call this push notification sample. And everything else here is fine. These are obviously my values, but you can use whatever you want. Language is Swift. You're more than welcome to to write this in Objective-C, but I'm going to write this sample in Swift. And I'm not going to use core data or any of the unit tests or UI tests. I'm going to click next. I'm just going to leave this on my desktop. So I'm going to click create. And that creates our project. So I'm actually going to immediately close this, because before we get started, what we want to do is we need to add a couple pods, using the CocoaPod system. So I'm going to navigate over to my project directory, which is on the desktop. Right, I'm going to type pod init, and that will create a pod file. And then I'm going to type nano. You can use Vim if you want. I'm a little partial to the nano text editor. It works just as fine. And I'm going to nano pod file. Great. And so I'm going to arrow down to this section where it says pods for my project. I'm going to type pod space single tick, and then I need the Firebase core, or we need the Firebase core. And I'm also going to add the pod for Firebase messaging. All right, and so that's what's going to allow us to do a lot of the fun stuff to get our notifications working. All right, so now I'm going to in Nano, I'm going to press Control O, which is going to write my pod file out. I'm going to keep the same name, hit enter, and then I'm going to hit Control X to exit. Just to clean up my terminal, I'm just going to hit Command K. Okay. And so now I'm going to type pod install, and then that's going to go through and install the pod, and you can see that it installed a bunch of somewhat extra stuff, but it's we're not going to use all of that, but it will install what we need. And now if I look at my directory, I will have a push notification sample.xc workspace, and that's what we want to open in order to continue here. So if I type xcwo, and that will finish for me, and then hit enter, and that will open my project. Okay, and so now I have this pods area, and now I have this main project here. And so all of the work that we need to do in our project at this point is all going to take place in our appdelegate.swift file. So I'm going to open that, a single click. And so the first thing that we want to do is we want to add a couple import statements, or a few import statements. The first one that we want to add is we want to import Firebase by itself. Firebase by itself. We want to import Firebase core by itself, just like that. And then I also want to import Firebase messaging. And then the last one that I want to import, or the last Firebase module that I want to import, is Firebase instance ID, right? And so core is going to give us some of our basic things that we need to get Firebase up and running. Firebase messaging is obviously our core, messaging between, our application and the Firebase servers. And Firebase instance ID is another module that's going to support basically the token, the token that Firebase provides to kind of identify your application to its services. Then the last one that we want to import, nothing to do with Firebase, but we want to import user notifications. And if you can guess, this is a module that's going to support us in delivering notifications to the user. And so then those are the import statements that we need. I'm just going to hit Command B to build our application, just to make sure that everything is good so far and we don't have any odd beta errors or just errors in general. And we don't. And so so far we're doing really, really well for ourselves. I haven't really done much yet, but we're getting there. So the first thing that we want to do in our project is we want to actually set up our project to work with notifications. And so in order to do that, if you've ever used any application for the first time and it utilizes remote notifications or notifications of any kind, you'll always notice that when you open it, it'll say, hey, such and such application would like to send you remote notifications. Do you want to accept that? And you always usually do, because you want to be notified of these things in your app. And so we're gonna do the same. And so the way that we do that is like this. Make some space here. So we can. What we want to do is we want to make sure there are two different ways to do this for the different versions of iOS. And so for iOS versions 8 and up, there's a certain set of functions that you use, and then obviously everything below there's a different set. So for the purposes of this tutorial, I'm going to assume that we're using iOS 8 devices and above, and I think at this point, with iOS 11 coming out right around the corner, I think that's a legitimate assumption to make. So the first thing we want to do is we want to request permission from the user to get these notifications. So the way that we do that is we want to call UN user notification center .current .request authorization. And then so it's the first thing that pops up here in our IntelliSense is what we want. So I'm going to press enter, and then it's going to prompt me for some options and then also a completion handler. And what I usually do here before I fill out anything is I usually tab over to the completion handler and just hit enter to fill that out. Just a kind of a habit that I've gotten into. And then for the first value, it's a bool, which is going to be is granted. That's going to tell us if the user granted permission or they didn't. And then the obviously the next parameter is an error to let us know if there was anything that happened that we didn't want. And then for the code, what I'm going to type here just for right now is I'm going to type if error does not equal nil, then we're going to have to do something. Something bad happened. And we're going to have to fix that or respond to that in some way. Otherwise, we're going to continue on with our our setup. And to do that, we're going to make a couple statements here. So UN user notification center again .current .delegate .current .delegate is going to be equal to self. And then messaging .delegate is also going to be equal to self. And so this is basically saying for the delegate methods that we're going to declare for user notification center and or delegate methods that we're going to declare for the messaging from the Firebase messaging are going to be handled by this class. And so here we have a couple errors which I was expecting, but so basically these are going to let me know that I'm not adhering to these protocols properly. Now I can either take the suggestion here and fix it, or I can do it the right way and come up to the class declaration here and basically declare that I need to adopt the messaging delegate protocol as well as the UN user notification delegate, and then those errors will go right away. And then the last thing that I want to do here is I want to call on my application object is I want to register for these remote notifications. Okay. Well, it looks like I have another error up here. Let's see what that is. So this is basically telling me that I have yet to conform to this protocol fully, which I haven't because I have to. We need to write a couple methods to do that, but we're not quite ready for that yet. Then the other thing that we have to do to complete this request authorization here is we need to give it some options. And so we have three. In terms of these notifications, we have three options. We can get alerts, which are the things that you see, pop up on your screen or from the top of your screen. There are sounds, which, like as it would sound would be, sounds that notifications can make. And then also badges. Now, badges are those little numbers that you see on your icons with, 1s, 2s, and 3s, and so on and so forth. And so those are basically updated. Those can be updated. So the way that we do this is we type a, set of brackets to signify that this is an array, and this is going to be an array of options, and so here we can specify that we want alerts, we want sound, and we want badges. So we're gonna sign up for everything, and then that's it. And so now we can continue down our configuration path here. And so we've requesting authorization, we have our options, we don't have if we don't have an error, or excuse me, if we have an error, we're going to, we'll have to do some steps. I'm not sure what those would be, but we're not going to really fill that in. If we don't have an error, we're going to continue the configuration. Now, the last thing that we want to do in our configuration is we actually want to call a method on the Firebase app itself to actually configure our application to use Firebase, and so that's called Firebase App Doc Configure, and then that's all we have to do there. So moving on, we have to establish a couple additional methods here. The first is we want to establish a method that will basically connect us to the Firebase messaging system. And to do that, you can call this whatever you want, but I'm going to call mine. So we're going to write a function. I'm going to call mine connect to Firebase connection manager, we'll call that. And it's not going to accept any parameters, and so it's just a void function here. And then what we want to do here is we want to call on the messaging object reference. We're going to call a function method called should establish direct channel, and that's going to be equal to true. And so this is basically telling the messaging system that yes, we want this app to establish a direct connection to the Firebase system in order to interact with it. And so that's fine and good, but where do we want to call it? Well, we want to call this function immediately once our application becomes active. And so we want to do that down here in this function application to become active. So here I'm going to call connect to FCM. So whenever our application starts up, then we're going to try to connect up to the services. Then lastly, what we want to do is when the application enters the background to save on system resources, we're actually going to stop the connection. So in the application did enter background function, I'm going to call the reverse of this. I'm going to call this messaging and should establish direct channel is false. Now there's one, so then basically when our application goes into background, then we're gonna just break our connection. Now there's one other situation that we want to handle, and so occasionally the Firebase system is gonna issue your application a new token. And then it can do that whenever it feels that it needs to, and so we want to be able to handle that in our code. And luckily, there's a delegate method available for that in the messaging object, and so that's called did. So if we just type did refresh registration token and press enter, this is the method that handles that. And just for debugging purposes, I'm going to make a variable here. I'm going to call it new token, a constant. Call it new token, and then it's going to come off of our instance ID. Instance ID object. Instance ID dot token, and that's going to return us a long string of characters that represents our token that the Firebase system recognizes our app as, and when they communicate back and forth, Firebase knows it's us, and vice versa, and it's able to deliver us notifications, etc. And then here, so if we get a new token, what we want to do is we want to call this connect to FCM again, so it can reset itself. And all is right in the world. And so now you see our error here went away because that was the delegate method it was looking for in order to adhere to that protocol. So if we press Command B and build our application again, that's it. So, and that is actually all of the work that we have to do in our code. Everything else we're going to need to go externally to a couple spots to do. So before we move on, what I want to do is I want to run this. I'm going to run this application directly on my phone here. So I'm going to start this, build it, and run it to show you what's going to happen when you run it. What should happen when you run on your phone. So it starts up here. There's no UI, so it's just going to be blank. All right. So it's not going to run this time. I got ahead of myself. So if you've watched my other video on debugging in Xcode, this will seem very familiar too. But obviously, I've got an error here when I try to start my application. And if you want to watch that video, there should be a link either in the comments or the description, or maybe there'll be something cool on the screen to see that video. But what we can do here is we can expand this a little bit, and the bottom part's not really all that helpful. But if we just like kind of scan up a bit, we can see terminating app due to uncaught exception because we could not find a Google service.info or Google service-info.plist file, which is a special configuration file which we need to make. So let's stop this. And we're going to need to go up to our Firebase account, our Google account, and set up this project. And so before we do, I know for a fact that I'm going to need my bundle identifier. So I'm going to just Command C that to copy that to my copy buffer. And I'm going to go up to Google Chrome, which I already have I have my Firebase account open already, and so I can go ahead and start making this project. So this is a brand new account that I made for the purposes of this demo, and so it's empty. So I'm going to go ahead. So if to get here, all you need to do is go to firebase.google.com, and it'll bring you to this console. And so I want to click on the big blue box to add a project, and I'm going to call this this is just a description, but push. I'm going to call this push tutorial. And just taking a moment to generate my project ID. Taking a long while to generate my project ID. All right, let's look. It's having trouble here. Let's close this. I'm gonna refresh my browser. Oh, it logged me out. That's what was going on. So all right. So now add project, and let's call this push tutorial. There we go. I don't know why it gave me such a. I don't know if I like that name. Tutorial. Oh, I see. So let's call it Douglas Develops Push Tutorial. There we go. And so I'm going to create project. And that's going to go off and create the project in their system. Hopefully this takes a little less time than it was before. Great. And so that created the basic project, and this is the overview of your project. And down the side here are some different things that the Firebase system has to offer. Authentication and database and storage are three that I'm more familiar with than the others. And then I'll be down here of our notifications, which we'll use in a little bit. But the first thing that we want to do is we want to click on this first button because we want to add a Firebase to our app. And so we're going to click that. And then here's the iOS bundle ID, which I had the forethought to copy. And so I'm going to paste that in, just like that. And then we want a nickname for our app. This isn't really going to be a real app, so we can name it whatever, but I'll just call this push tutorial. That's just for us, and it's optional too, but so you don't have to actually do that. And so I'm going to select register app, and that's going to create this file for us. And so this Google service-info.plist file, we're going to want to add that into our project. So I'm going to download it. And I'll download it, and here is the file downloads into my download directory. I'm going to copy that, and then I'm going to put that right in my project here, and I'm going to paste that. Just like that. So one thing that I know from experience is, I've downloaded more than one of these, obviously, so it has this 2 in parentheses. And if you've done other things with Firebase, then you'll have the same problem. So I know that if I paste this into my project like so, that it's not going to work, and it's not going to like that. So I'm going to back this out and just keep it and name it properly. All right, and so that is where we want that for now. So let's back in here, and so we've already done the pod install and initialization, so we can actually skip both of these. And so I'm just going to close this. Now that is actually before we get too far, let's go back to our project. And add that file. And so I'm going to right click on the project. I'm going to say add files, and then I'm going to select that file and add that into my project. So now I'm going to do a Command B. I'm going to build it again, and that was successful, which I would expect it to be. And now I'm going to run it, deploy it to my device. It's not working on my device. I'm going to try this. I'm going to try to put it out onto a simulator here. Let's start that up. Under simulator here. Right. So I'm not sure why that wasn't working on the device. We'll sort that out in a little bit. But here's what I was saying. So push notification sample would like to send you notifications, and then it gives you the message. And so here we're going to say allow, and then our blank app load. And so for now we don't need to do anything with that. And so we're gonna stop this from running, and then let's go back to our Firebase console here. So we have to do one more thing here for our project. And if we click the little gear icon here and then go to project settings, and select cloud messaging, because that's what we're dealing with here, is we need to specify, in the old days you would specify, you would upload a .p12 file, which was basically a key that you generated between basically your development, your Mac and the Mac and your Apple developer account. Now they're recommending that you use these APN S authentication keys, which are a .p8 file. And since that's the new way that they want to go, that's what we're going to try to use here. I've actually never done that. I've actually not done this yet. So I'm not 100% sure that it will work. but but if it doesn't, we'll troubleshoot why and we'll figure it out together. All right, so I have my sign in for my Apple developer account here. I'm just going to sign in. And I'm I'm due for my renewal, which is coming up around the corner. So I should get on that. But that's not the point of this. So we want to click into here, our certificates, identifiers, and profiles. And in here, we want to select keys. And I'm going to click all. And so this is kind of great. So unlike certificates, keys do not expire and can be modified to access more services after the creation. So in the old, I say in the old days, but last year, you would come in here and create these certificates for all these different things, and then your certificate would handle all the different services. So it looks like they've moved to this key system, which is kind of nice. So I'm gonna click this plus sign. And so create a new key, and we're just gonna call. Oh no, let's call this. What do we want to call this? All right, so let's. So here we're gonna put in our key name. Let's call this APNS sample key. And then down below here, I'm going to say enable. I'm going to click this enable checkbox. And then, so we want to use the Apple push notification service for notification requests. As one key is used for all your apps. So this, I kind of like this. It seems like a simplification in a major way, which is great. And then I'm going to select continue. And confirm. And says, oh, download and backup. After downloading your key, it cannot be re-downloaded as the server copy is removed. Okay. If you're not prepared to download your key at this time, click done and download it at a later time. All right, so this seems kind of important. So I'm going to actually make a screenshot of this in case I need these values for anything. So I'm going to download this. And so here's over here we can see we have our P8 file like I mentioned. And so I'm going to show that in the Finder. And I'm going to copy that guy. And I'm going to paste this to the desktop. And then I'm also going to copy and move that and put that right in my directory here, just so I have it kind of centralized. Okay. Excuse me. So now I'm going to go back up to my actually, let's see if there's anything more to do here. So I'm going to click done. Okay, that's it. Okay, and so I'm going to come back over to my Firebase console, and I'm going to upload my P8 file. So browse and P8. Enter key ID, which I didn't copy. So let's see if I can go back and get that key ID. Yeah, this seems important. Copy that. Command C. Go back over here and paste. All right, now app ID prefix. Now what is that? Let's see. You can find your app ID prefix in the Apple Member Center. All right, so let's go. Let's see if it'll bring me right there. Apple. Okay. I'm going to copy that, and we're going to paste that. Great. And then I am going to upload. Great. So that looks like that was successful. And so we're not dealing with these old certificates anymore, and we got our key. And so the next spot that we're going to want to get to in the Firebase console is this notification console. But before we do that, let's go back over to our app here, our loosely termed application, since it doesn't actually really do anything. One additional thing that you're going to want to do in order to get this working is come over to capabilities, and you're going to see this second item here for push notifications. You're going to actually want to tick this guy on, and then it does, make sure that you have the ability to do push notifications for your app ID, and you have this proper entitlements file. And actually, now that I think about it, I did miss one step for us here. So I'm going to copy this. I'm going to go back over to my Apple developer account. I actually need to create a app ID for this app. So if I come down to identifiers, app IDs, I'm going to add one, and we're going to call this push sample, and then my bundle ID, like so. And then down here, I want to select push notifications in order to use that feature. And then I'm going to select continue. There's errors. There's errors, and you know what? I may have used this. Maybe use this for another sample. Just bear with me one moment. All right. Well, that's a little embarrassing, but so I did use this. I did use this bundle ID for another sample that I wrote back for the older version of Firebase, and so I deleted that app ID, but it didn't seem to release it. So what I'm going to, so this is actually kind of a helpful exercise. So what we're going to do is rename our. Unfortunately, what we have to do is we're going to rename our bundle ID, which means we got to ripple that back across the different spots, which is unfortunate, but this is a good exercise to go through because sometimes you do have to do this. So I'm going to rename this to RPN for remote push notification, and this I'm going to tack on sample, and then I'm just going to name the description similarly sample. So I got push notifications checked off here, and then I click continue, and so that's great. And so this is a confirmation of the things that you have selected. You'll get these two by default usually, and then this one is on, but configurable. And then I'm going to register that, and then I'm done. And so now I am going to just copy this bundle ID. I'm going to copy this bundle ID, and I'm going to go back to Xcode. And I'm going to change the bundle identifier here, and then that will take care of that. Unfortunately, what I have to do is I have to go to the Firebase console. I'm going to have to delete. I'm going to delete this app or this project altogether. Or not. I don't want to delete the project. Excuse me. I want to. Do I want to delete the project? Yes, I wanted to go to project settings, and now I want to delete the app. I don't want to delete the project, and then I can just create another app here, paste in my bundle ID, which is correct. I'm going to register this app. Excuse me. And so what I have to do is I have to download this plist file yet again, and show that in the Finder. I'm going to copy that out. I'm going to put that into this directory. And what I'm going to do is this little copy paste magic here. I'm going to roll this one out to the trash. And then I'm going to rename this one like so. And then if I go into Xcode and take a look at the plist file, it'll be representative of my new bundle ID, which is exactly what I want. And so now if I go to the project settings here, and then capabilities, I'm just gonna tick this off and tick it back on just for just completeness sake. And so now this should be all set. And then I'm going to build this project again, and it's should be good to go. So what have we done so far? So we've configured our app delegate to handle all of the configuration items, to register for the notifications, connect to Firebase messaging system, disconnect when needed, and also handling the token if it's ever refreshed. We've got a we have a Firebase project set up. We've uploaded our key. Oh, we haven't uploaded our key because we've recreated this project. So let's re-upload our key here, our .p8, which we don't have to do anything with. We don't have to regenerate that for any reason. We do need the key ID, which we had here, and let's put that in. And then I do got to go back and get my prefix, which will obviously be different for you. And then we got to put that in there. Okay, and say upload. And then so that's good. And then in our Apple developer account, we can close that. We've got our we've got our app ID and we have our key all set up. So those are all of the things that are necessary for setup to deliver remote notifications to your device, your iOS device. So the last thing that we have to do to complete this is actually send a notification and see if we get it on our device. And the easy way to do that is through the Firebase console. And so down here on the left, we have notifications. And then all we have to do is say, let's send our first message. And so we can put in any message we want. Some people like hello world. I don't, you can put in whatever you want. You can say, hey Watson, come here. And then you can fill this in if this is optional, but down here is the important piece. So we want to stay on user segment, and then we want to target users that are using this app. Okay. And then here, when we are ready to send it, we would send it there. But we want to let's open up our phone here, or open up my phone and get set here. So we have this push notification app already running, I believe. Let's see. Actually, no. Let's close that. Let's rerun the application just to make sure that we're good to go here. And let that run. Oh, I'm sorry. We're in the simulator. That's right. It wasn't working on the phone. So since we have, basically this is a new app, we renamed the bundle. It's treating it as a new app, and so we're going to allow notifications. And then we're going to hit the home button to put the device, the app into the background. Because right now the notifications will only be delivered if your app is in the background. Nope, no Siri. There we go. Okay, and so I'm going to come back over to the console here. I'm just going to minimize this so we can look at these kind of side by side. I'm going to scroll down, and then I'm going to send the message and hope that it gets there. And then I'm going to click send. Okay, so it's not being delivered. So let's take a look. Let's just take a quick review here of the code. Let's see. Yeah. All right. So here's, I made a mistake from the onset. And so this only would have really worked once. So what I did here was a mistake. So within this block, this request authorization block, I made the mistake of running this Firebase App Doc Configure within here. We really want that to run regardless of anything else. So let's move that out, and let's just put that right before we return. So that's always going to configure our Firebase application. So that's one thing. The other thing that I was just ignoring before was this register for remote notification purple error saying that it must be run from the main thread. So, I guess, it would probably work, but just so that we're adhering to, this error, let's just fix it. So if we type dispatch queue dot main dot async, then this will put us back on to the right thread, and then we can just copy and paste this like so, and then that should, if we rebuild it, that should be fine. Alternatively, we didn't have to even be that fancy. We could comment that out, and we can just run, and we can just say application dot I think not application. We can go UI application dot shared dot register. Actually, you know what? Let's do that. Let's not overcomplicate our life here. All right. So now I think we're in a little bit better shape. And so now let's change this. Let's run this on our phone. So let's get our phone active here. And then let's say run. And so this will get us back over to our phone. And so our app is active here. Oh, it's still complaining here. Let's stop this. So maybe we do need to do this. So let's dispatch queue dot main dot async. And let's execute this code here. UI application dot shared dot register for remote notifications. See how that strikes us here. And then let's run this now. All right, so we're on our phone. We closed you. So now let's go back to our console here. Let's just duplicate this to save time. And then let's say, hey, Watson, come here. And then I'm going to say send message and send. And there it is on our phone. Just like that. All right, and so then let's create a new message just to prove to ourselves that we're good here. And so let's just say we had some struggles, but we got it working. Okay, I'm going to say select app. I'm going to say RPN sample. I'm going to say send message, and then send. And then and there it is. It pops up on our phone, just like that. And then we can pull it down, and you can do any of the usual stuff to it, and then we can close it and whatnot. Now also if our phone's off like that, and then we let's send it again. Everything is fine here, and say send. It should just pop up, wake up your phone, and then you can scroll to the left, slide to the left, either to view it or to clear it. And so here we're just going to clear it, and then that's it. So that's it. So we covered a lot of ground. We learned how to set up our Firebase project. We learned how to set up our key, our app ID in the Apple Developer Center, and we learned how to configure our app delegate to receive remote notifications. Next time, we're going to see how we can set up a project. So we're going to run the same app on two phones, and then an action on one device is going to trigger a remote notification on another. That'll be a fun exercise. We're going to, beyond the app, we're going to write a very simple Node.js API to actually handle the in-between communications between your device and the Firebase server. So stay tuned for that. If you haven't subscribed yet to my channel, please do. I would appreciate it. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.